Chapter 35, Revelation. During all of this time is when Carl and his son were finally able to get into the space station and hack into its electronics, then turning its telescopes toward the coordinates on Earth, they homed in on Israel, precisely on the city of Jerusalem. Carl recorded everything as he watched through the ISS telescope as he verified the coordinates. We had received them from the messengers. While Carl was analyzing the information and comparing that data, his son gathered the necessary information from the station's maintenance computer for the schematics of the airlocks and doors, then capturing in real time images of the docking door. Amy was back at the helm and relieved John and cloaked the ship again, regaining the force field as she was continually accelerating upward through the atmosphere. It was then that the radar picked up the ships heading our way. There were 3 of them, and they were closing in on our position. They should have left me, I thought. There was a voice in the darkness. No. No. Suddenly I was able to hear for a few seconds about what was going on. How far till orbit? Judy asked. 2 miles, Amy responded. She pushed the throttle forward to about level 5, and we tried not to do this in the atmosphere because if you reach pre-light speed in the atmosphere, you become something similar to lightning, which could lead to thunder, which was more traceable than a sonic boom if picked up by the enemy. They watched the 3 ships pursuing as they picked up the trail, but as the first one left the atmosphere, it suddenly exploded, and with that, the others dropped very quickly toward Earth as if they lost power. Our ship was out and in an orbit as she shifted into autopilot. "We're safe for now," she shouted over the comm to the rest of the crew. "How did you know we would be safe and that they would be destroyed? How?" Judy asked. "There were commands in my head. I just listened and did what it said to do. That voice showed me what happened long ago, so I just did it. It reminded me of what happened years ago when we were shot at as we left Earth. Now, I thank God. Who else can I thank?" She crossed herself in the orthodox manner, bowed her head, and said a silent prayer, and everybody accepted. She then said, "We were meant to do this, all of this, but we have to be tuned in and open." "How long till we get back to the base?" she asked Judy. "Almost there. About a minute," she replied. "James, take the helm. I'm going below." "Got it," he simply replied. And then, "I'm so sorry, Amy, I didn't know." She simply replied, "It's okay, James. It's not your fault. We're all learning as we go." The last thing I remembered, I was reviewing my life and I was lying in the snow bleeding out. I was feeling great pain and I became super hot. My heart stopped and my heat was leaving my body from everywhere. And all this as my life slipped away. I realized I was in darkness at a certain point. It was cool here. It became colder, which felt more normal than anything I had felt before for some reason. It was quite the opposite of what you would think or expect when dying. There was no pain or anything else to sense except my thoughts. I was thinking of only sleeping now on that side. I soon found out that the soul didn't need to sleep or rest, and it wouldn't, so I opened my eyes in the dark, or at least I thought I did, and I was aware that I was in darkness again, realizing there was no difference in what I was seeing or not seeing. I tried again. I know I have eyelids. I felt that I did, and I opened them again, and there was no retreat whatsoever from this void. I was still in darkness no matter what I did. If there was a way to experience blindness, this surely was it, and after several more attempts at trying to see something or to be able to tell a difference of what it was I was in, I realized I had no answers. Time went by. I don't know how long, and I thought, Jesus, what is this? And then when I called on him, I opened my eyes to the man instantly right in front of my face. But he was a giant. His face was huge. I couldn't focus in on it at first. It seemed I had to back up some to see all of his face. Then there was a mind-to-mind communication, very much like what Amy and I experience when conversing in private. He appeared to me as was depicted throughout the centuries, but not quite. He looked more like a modern person, darker, curlier hair, but similar as depicted. What I received from him was that certain people were meant to help continue humankind the way it had been going. You know the verse. Humankind now needs to listen to the warnings that are now given by my messengers, because it was too late to change things on this planet now and had been for a long time. You are to follow everything that my messengers tell you to do. Certain things have to take place. I was also told Amy and you, Mike, were guided to Kepler E and F. This Earth would not be totally destroyed, but would follow what the revelation of John predicted. It will be turned into the new earth with a new Jerusalem, but not without a great upheaval. I was also told, adhere to the wishes of the people of Kepler E. It is their free will as to how they would allow interactions with you. It is their planet and maybe also yours. It's their choice. You are to protect them at all costs and bring them out of the 15th century. You will be tested again in the future. Be ready. Everyone that I have allowed to survive believing in me will return to the garden. He then said, your time has not yet come. You cannot cross over. He knew what I wanted, and that was to stay there with him on that side. As I begged, he faded away with a slightly disappointed look because of my selfishness, but it was not uncommon to want to stay in the afterlife. My feeling was a normal reaction. We were blessed to keep most of the advancements of that mankind had achieved, and it was basically to see if man and woman would, or more like could, ever overcome evil intentions or sins and finally be morally correct with faith on its own volition, so we could be at the right stages of our evolution through knowledge and further advancements given by God to man directly. In other words, we would be where we should be if we never fell. The future would tell if we could fulfill this new destiny. Meanwhile, Amy hovered over me and had realized I passed. She was crying now. I was pale and blue in color for about a minute or two when I suddenly snapped back to life with major pain. I was screaming with pain. I sat up and I gulped a giant amount of air, which startled her at first. Then I collapsed backwards, begging for some kind of pain relief. She went to get the first aid kit and complied with a shot of morphine. We're almost there, she repeated. She was in tears. Get some bandages, she screamed out. I became conscious suddenly and concisely. I said, "Watch this." I concentrated from inside and slowly pushed the bullet out of my chest, and as the bullet fell to the side, I said, "Get it, save it for me," and passed out. As I faded in and out of consciousness, I realized I was being wheeled on a cart to medical. As the scenes of light and doorways were flashing by now, as if time was speeding up, I had no fear. A surgeon started to work on me. He wasn't there long. After examining me, all he had to do was to stitch the wound. As Amy filled him in on what had taken place, I could see the amazement on his face. Then all I remember was what he said next. "We'll make him rest now till morning." The surgeon pumped something into the line in my arm as I fell back into darkness, and I thought about the darkness, and there was no such thing as absolute nothing. I believe this is as close as we can get to nothing. Even in that darkness and during unconsciousness, the state I was in, there was something. There was me. There are unseen, unfelt, unsensed things all around the sleeper that is not being sensed. There is always a place, and it's always all around us with a love we can't understand yet. If there was a such thing as nothing, it didn't exist. Even the darkness is something. But this time I thought, I can sleep. The next morning, as I woke, I could see Amy and Judy at my side, and then Carl and his son walked in as Amy laid kisses on me. Judy held my hand as Carl reviewed what they did and found out on the ISS and what state it was in. They then informed me of the ongoing changes we would have to make to include it. Magic Square just arrived and stood listening to what was being reported. Our ships will all be altered to meet the guidelines of the space station's airlocks. And this is interesting. While you are out, we figured out where the asteroid is going to impact the Earth. "Where?" I asked. "Jerusalem," he simply stated. Then he added, "In about 27 days, give or take an hour or two." "What?" Then I asked, "So what happens in 21 days, or now 20? "We don't know yet, so the mission to Kepler you were going to take for Drew has been rearranged. There's not enough time for that. We are all going to leave together. When the next council meeting happens, I'll inform you on our next move." I replied that I already knew. We all have to leave, and everybody needs to have faith in this move. So now is the time to show them the messages and the messengers delivering the information. Because I have been to the other side, I have had a near-death experience that reinforced what they were saying. "Can you prove that?" Carl asked. "I don't know," I said. "Maybe with Amy's abilities. Amy, read me. See if you can see what I did." After a few minutes, she answered me. "All I get is danger is coming." Magic said, "We are going to have to get everyone on the same page, mates, and that's that. We knew it would be sooner or later. It's just going to have to happen quicker, that's all." They told and showed me the pursuit and what happened to the alien technology when they left the atmosphere. I asked, "Why do you suppose that happened?" Magic answered, "All the religious text points to the fact that they have no place else to go. The atmosphere of the planet is the third heaven, their last refuge, so God apparently won't let them go back to wherever or whatever they came from. They have to fulfill prophecy and face their judgment." As I started to sit up, Amy gently pushed me back and said, You have to rest at least one day and heal. We don't need you bleeding all over the place. We'll get the ball rolling, so relax. Got it?" All I could say with a feeling of reverence and slight disappointment was, yes, ma'am." The next day as I woke up, I asked the nurse about a pad and something to write with as she checked my vitals. "Sure, I'll get it for you, Mr. Mike, and your vitals are surprisingly normal. It's as if nothing happened to you." She said this with a questioning look on her face. As she left, I shouted, "And don't call me Mister." She just turned and giggled as she left the room. Wasn't long when Magic and Drew showed up together. "Are you all right? How you feeling?" "I'm good. I just started out with a joke aimed at both of them. But I'm amazed." Two Irish guys walked out of a bar. Both of them looked at each other, waiting, puzzled. "Come on, guys, it's possible," I stated knowingly. They both caught it and then laughed, since Drew was Irish and Magic was partially Irish. I asked, "Did Amy fill you in, Drew, on what I seen?" "Yes," he said. Then Drew said, "It seemed very possible now, especially after that miracle medical demonstration you performed." Magic spoke next. "We can move everything we have gathered that is important in one trip. It'll take several attempts to pack it all in, though." "Yes, I figured that, but can we move most of it and be done in, let's say, 15 days? I added, "There will be no coming back." "It is possible if nothing goes wrong," Magic said. "After reviewing what Carl figured out, we still don't know what the danger is in 19 days. Drew then added, "We thought it was the two separate events, but they are about, 26 days away? Both coordinates come together on one day, so what is it that will happen?" he asked. I stated that it must be an attack. That is the only thing I could figure. We might be discovered, and in this mountain we are still vulnerable if we are still here. "There is something else I've been thinking about." "What's that?" Magic asked. "Once we're gone, they cannot find this base." "Why are you worried about that?" Drew asked. "Think about it," I said. "Okay, I got nothing," Drew said. "These guys are highly advanced, and now we are on pretty much equal footing. They won't give up trying to find us. As you know, they are relentless and can be for eons. Nowadays, they are always looking for stragglers. They know there's an advanced threat out here somewhere. They'll be looking relentlessly for those responsible. You know this. And we have to be even more careful. Not only that, they have no clue of any timeline according to what Revelation says, what Jesus said. No man, and obviously no creature's gonna know when this is all coming together. It won't take them long to figure out where it comes from, if in fact they are attempting that." Big M looked a little dismayed. "Magic, think about it. If you can go back and talk to me in the past, don't you think they can too? They can't go back and change their destiny back then, but they could give the information to their kind back then to kill us, or people we know, which could affect the base and us during the beginning of its conception. That action wouldn't and doesn't affect their destiny, because they're already damned, but it will affect our destiny. After all, they have been there in the past, and they too communicate mind to mind. There's one more thing they can never know, that I am responsible for this technology, which would narrow their search criteria. They could change my past, since it was from them in the past who actually gave me the hints about the technology. They made me aware inadvertently of it, and they were the trigger. This might be the reason I seen those alien crafts, but they didn't know it was me, at least so far. I told that story enough now, though, that they could figure it out eventually. So what I think is Thomas and the Messenger's mission is gonna be a bait and switch. It has to be. They said they had a plan that would make us safe. What else could it be? This is how my day and night went as I wrestled with only what was revealed to the boys. Actually, the old guys now, until I passed out. When I woke the next time, I thought the drone didn't self-destruct. They shot it down. That means in time they could find it. If they haven't, or didn't yet, but soon they might. They might dismantle it and figure out its flight path. So we now know the day when they will react, and they will react in this direction, looking for the exact spot we now occupied. This is what my premonition and NDE is telling me somehow. Before the meeting, my next move this day would be to ask Thomas and his brothers, John and Paul, in private first and find out what the plan was. I secured an office with a waiting room and interviewed all three of them when they returned. 5 hours before Thomas revealed to everyone at the base the general idea, we had to learn before the meeting what the plan was. I had to learn first at the interview, and I had to reveal it to the founders, along with Thomas. There was no other choice, and I explained to them why today was the day. So at the council meeting, I started. I was asked to play detective by all the founders, and I have to get to the bottom of this. When I explained why, they understood, since later today everyone was to know anyway. Thomas worked in the command center and had access to sensitive information, which is why I had to investigate, because at this time this was not a normal choice with all that we knew about the world and the extremes taking place. It just didn't make sense. The odd thing was they didn't hide their intentions. So what the hell is this all about? No one in the colony wanted to stay behind. No one. Except for these three people. What the hell was the plan exactly? Time or not, we became anxious and cautious. Paul simply said, "You already know. The details are on a need-to-know basis for now. The rest of the colony doesn't need to know. For your security, all of you shouldn't know, but soon we will start a project, and like I said, those involved are to be the most trusted, and still it will be a need-to-know basis." I asked, "Bait and switch?" "Yes, it's nothing to worry about. Have faith and trust. We will show you what you need to know when you need to know." "All right, I believe you and have been told to listen." At the next public council meeting or town hall, I spoke. Everything was shown and reported so that everybody on the space would have the same motivation and information of our immediate dire straits. Everything relied on everybody's full cooperation and dedication. Each and every member's instinct to survive will make this happen in time. And we didn't have much left. So I spoke to all after showing them what happened, and they knew that this was a special occurrence. There is no doubt in anybody's mind as they watched the recording of the orbs passing through the walls, then manifesting into the two people standing on stage with Tom and I. I found a relationship here that I felt when in the Army, total cooperation when each man and woman relied on his fellow soldiers in extremes of violence and possible death. There was an unbroken brotherhood. There were no differences now of color, nationality, or race. So I told them the basics. I remembered what was put forth by a former president. Let me think. Oh, yeah. President Ronald Reagan's 1987 speech about a UFO alien invasion at the United Nations. That year, he must have known something of the things to come somehow, but didn't reveal it at the time, and I wondered how he knew. Guess I'll find out later. Somehow now, we are all soldiers, brothers in arms, and we would go to battle now and die for our brothers if we had to. You could feel it in the air. I have to learn through this life and death struggle how to keep people feeling this way and not to lose it or change. Not like when men would be discharged and eventually go back to their former ways of thinking and prejudices. Everyone here had an air of confidence now because this was the first time they witnessed the fact that we could hurt our enemy with our technology, which was so far from our first intentions as to be astronomical. We have and will soon see our comrades who sacrificed their lives for the whole of the colony. That's how we will, all of us, become soldiers, Christian soldiers. I then showed them the recording during our seed mission and the destroying or the destruction of one of the alien crafts, which has never happened before. They were jubilant. They now knew they could protect themselves. But that didn't matter. It was even deeper than that, and it wouldn't be revealed just yet. They all clapped and cheered for several long minutes, accepting their faith and happy now to work as hard as it took. Soon we will know for sure what the plan is. We will reveal it to you accordingly. I present Thomas Costello. Thank you. The first thing, you all have to agree to leave together and not come back for any reason. Your job here is almost done. The whole colony would have to leave together in the allotted time. The council is in charge of the logistics, the labor and loading, which loads to start with, basically the most important first. Carl was helping with that. Magic was preparing the ships and weapon systems, making sure that all of them were turned and ready, along with Drew's help, to refit the can and mothership so they would be able to dock with the space station, while Amy checks all the communication systems and food stocks that would be used while in flight. And all of you, I thank for all the hard work we all will have to do quickly. Next, Chapter 36, the interview.